I had envisioned a version of what I was going to talk about for this next week because we're still in the eclipse season. We had our solar eclipse, which was visible only if you lived down near the Antarctic area of the planet. This week on Tuesday, we're going to have a lunar eclipse, total lunar eclipse that will be visible predominantly in the region of the Pacific, and that would be the eastern portion of Asia and the western portion of the United States fairly early in the morning on the west coast here. As something definitely worth pondering, but let me back up a step here. Here we are. It's Monday, and our Mars, our warrior archetype, has shifted out of the communal space of Aquarius into Pisces, the realm of the potential for spiritual awakening. Do you suspect or even think there's a possibility that a light might come on as to what it is that is transpiring on the planet as we go into this week and attempt to tune it more effectively into the lunar south node aspect of where it is that we are coming from and what might be being attempted as an awakening process in a more humane version of why we as humans are here on planet Earth at this time. I'm immediately going to jump to, as you can see, the moon here at the sun at 13 degrees, the moon at 15 degrees, which basically means, and this is at 8 o'clock, about 4 hours earlier than this, we have the exact opposition of the moon from the sun. And you can see the moon is only a few degrees away from that south node, which is one of the monikers of an eclipse, when the sun and the moon, full or new, are within a close range to those lunar nodes. I had considered the Sabian symbol for this particular lunar eclipse at length last week before waking up to this morning's news, which there was a different version of potential that I saw within it. Well, let me just read it to you so you can assimilate in the fashion that you need to the potential for what this might mean. It reads, "A powerful statesman overcomes a state of political hysteria." Keynote: the focusing of the collective need for order and structural interdependence into a personage who incarnates the answer to this need. Now, the husband's role of fecundator of nature here takes on a collective social significance. We are at the stage where a powerful realization of the very purpose of the cycle of existence faces the chaotic remains of a disstructured past. The character of the leader is always delineated by the need, subconscious though it may be, of the unformed agglomeration of entities he is called upon by destiny to lead. In time, the leader will be worshipped as the Divine Father of the society he structured. At this third stage of the 33rd sequence, we see a new type of characterization of the many-faceted polarization of positive and negative. We have before us a personage endowed with charisma, this elusive and mysterious power that comes from a man's or a woman's openness to the power of planetary evolution. I don't know whether you can see that version of that square between Mars and Uranus that I was sharing just a bit ago. But the potential was there. I'm not so sure anymore. Not after I woke up this morning to the news that once again an administration claiming to, terminate wars on so many fronts seems more hell-bent on creating them than anything else. At the world level, here in the streets of our own country, sending in militaristic-oriented troops to remove citizens that have been deemed unnecessary. To who? Surely not to you and your neighbors that you have known for years. Something is amiss that needs a deliberate reorientation of our priorities at this time. Perhaps that Mars going into Pisces, even though it would be a likely challenge, could be the potential awakening of the protector as opposed to the warrior. Eclipses. Eclipses are an invitation that the two lights in the heaven set up a potential for awakening to a change factor that carries a substantial footprint in our everyday life. The moon is in the sign of Virgo. Virgo can represent discernment. One just needs to ask oneself, who or what am I? In the circumstances that exist now, and what change am I ready to facilitate in this life dance? Virgo. It really tunes into the attempt to facilitate cohesiveness within the context of its neighbors, of its neighborhood, of its work environment, of whatever experience that is transpiring where people are drawn together to accomplish something. This is what's on the line for this particular lunar eclipse. Each of us has to make that determination as best we can in this dance. The next things that I see for this week, we'll see what this week unfolds at the world stage and at our local stage as well, happens on the 6th. See this Venus and Mercury? Mercury's going retrograde, so it's racing toward the sun, which is racing toward Mercury. This will be a conjunction on this Friday, as Friday becomes Saturday, where they're going to cross paths. Mercury going up, the sun going down. This is an interesting consideration. We're in a Mercury retrograde cycle. And during Mercury retrograde cycles, the version, I was having this experience yesterday where I don't remember what brought it about, but someone had asked me about this Mercury retrograde. And the thing that popped into my mind was, you're in conversation with somebody. Pay attention if they get, this other person that you're talking with, a peculiar look on their face, quizzical, or, like they aren't really tuning into what it is that you're saying. A couple of different possibilities here are, perhaps what it is that I am saying needs a review. Or maybe the other person's ability to hear and understand what is transpiring is as well in that Mercury retrograde confusion space where thoughts jumble and what they thought you were saying, is what inspired that quizzical look on their face. We're in this Mercury retrograde cycle right now that began last week. And it would behoove us to pay closer attention to where our conversations are being inspired from. On this day, Friday of this upcoming week, as Mercury and the Sun cross paths, this is known as cazimi. When a planet is in the heart of the sun, it's going to go relatively quickly because of the fact that these two planets are moving in opposite directions. But still worth paying note to, even though Mercury's retrograde, the potential for clarity of thought and words during a cazimi moment are being infused with solar radiance. They're not just haphazard, random processes that are unfolding, but they carry some weight. So this Friday, pay attention. To what is coming forth in that brief window. Also, on this day, Venus shifted from Pisces into Aries. While not necessarily the most comfortable place for Venus, it's still Venus. It still has to do with the experience of the interaction or the convergence of interaction between each of us and one another. During the Piscean dance, Venus was exalted. It was extremely happy to be there, tuning us into the potential for a spiritual awakening for why it is we do gather together with one another. As on Friday this week, with the cazimi Mercury happening in the evening, the Venus slipping into Aries has just been, there's different ways to phrase this, but let's just say that I'm just going to put it out there because, stuff comes through that I couldn't tell where it's coming from, but it is coming. Somebody just whooped you upside the head, about the interaction experience that you're having with them or with another person to wake you up. It's energetic. That is Aries. Now, Mars, ruler of Aries, has just, begun its dance through the sign of Pisces. So it's not like it should be a complete and total surprise that, the challenge to the interactive space between you and anyone else still carries with it that Mars and Pisces requirement to consider things at a potentially deeper and as well spiritual perspective. All is not lost. So as Venus is going to do its dance through Aries this month, it will actually, this is an interesting month because Venus is moving real quickly. It began this month in Pisces, will go all the way through the sign of Aries and end up the month in Taurus, where, it's the ruler. So it would behoove us to pay attention to that interactive space we have with one another more explicitly as we do this dance. As the week ends, Venus goes over Neptune and then Saturn. That conjunction that we astrologers have been considering for quite some time as being fairly unique and substantial as a signature for a different potential awakening that individually and societally we have the opportunity to discover. Venus going over Neptune and Saturn as this week comes to a close reminds us this is not necessarily just an individual experience. Because Neptune and Saturn, outer planets, are always about a larger picture than our individual perspectives often get entangled in and forget to embrace as part of this picture of why we are here. There is much to contemplate as March unfolds. Many things are going to be brought to point. I can't say as I know what they all are. But what I woke up to this morning on the news was extremely disheartening. I'm going to just leave it at that. This may be a little bit shorter than normal, but each of us, I think, has to ask in this moment, where is it that my version of what it is that humanity is about, that I must play a part in as I see it? Good luck. Ciao.